Welcome to the Secret Passage podcast. I am your host, Dana Vespoli, and with me, as always, is Shannon Rogers.
Hello.
And we are back, with a disturbing subject, but an important one. Before we get started, though, let's talk about any interesting secret passages we may have wandered down this past week. And there is one that both Shannon and I ventured down together. It was a secret passage of trolldom.
We got trolled.
We got trolled.
You've been trolled.
Yes, we have our Instagram page. And for a while now, there is a person in particular who enjoys coming into the comments and just attacking us, accusing us of all kinds of things, from being right-wing nut jobs to dangerous and just
No credibility. Don't listen to us.
yes, we don't know anything. We are stupid and we don't know what we're talking about, according to her. So it's interesting because Shannon and I discussed, I mean, at first it was just a thing of like, oh, how funny. This person hates us. That's inevitable. But she keeps coming back. And that was interesting to us because usually someone will just say something dismissive, like, you're dumb, I hate you, you're ugly, you're stupid, and disappear.
Mm-hmm.
But man, this chick loves us in her own kind of demented way, because why else would you just keep coming back to an account that you dislike so much? But she does. And so this last time she referred to us as right-wing nut jobs, which is very interesting because I am a queer woman of color and a sex worker. I find it really strange that you would equate that with right wing, when, if anything, I am politically an independent. And I think all of this comes from the fact that I had posted on my personal account that I had attended a Jordan Peterson event this last year, and that I posted about the passing of Charlie Kirk in a way that was sympathetic. And I guess that means I'm right wing. So she, again, went from our account to then going into our personal accounts to stalk us, which is really weird. So anyway, Shannon and I had discussed, like, well, what do we do with this? Do we block her? Do we say anything? And we agreed that really, if she needs a place to just scream, by all means, as long as she is not threatening any listeners, any other people that are on our Instagram account, as long as she's not threatening us or doxing anyone, she can feel free to say whatever the heck she wants. Clearly, this is a person who is hurting or has some kind of mental health issues, because I don't know who else would just stalk a random Instagram account, especially an account of small creators like us. But it was interesting.
Yeah, I'm so paranoid. I'm like, well, I would be afraid of defamation. Like, I don't know why people aren't more afraid of like character assassination, saying things that are not true about people online. It was great. You're like, she's just showing her ass.
Yeah,
And
she's
like,
showing her ass. I'm like, keep screaming. You're boosting our engagement. But at the same time, like, and I mean this sincerely, like, get help, dude.
I know.
You're clearly not a happy person if you are screaming in people's comment section. There's something wrong. This is not a political podcast. We've said that a few times.
But everything is so politicized now. It's like you
Everything
cannot
is.
escape it. And
Right.
it's frustrating and annoying, and it doesn't have to be that way. So
Right.
that's why we don't engage, really, right? Like, there's no, you attack someone's person, how are we supposed to respond?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Let us move on. Okay. Today's episode, we are discussing the case of Kinsleigh Welty, a little 5-year-old girl from Indianapolis who was killed on April 9th, 2024. Just this month, Her father and grandfather are filing a lawsuit against DCS in Indiana for failing to protect Kinsleigh when her abuse was so blatantly obvious. The case of Kinsleigh Welty came to my attention because of a TikTok post about the lawsuit that has been filed against DCS in Indiana by Kinsleigh's paternal grandfather. Let's see. Her father's name is Bradley Welty, and her grandfather's name is Brian Welty. And so this poor child, Kinsleigh Welty, just was failed honestly by everyone in her life, as far as I'm concerned. Definitely by DCS. And this is a case where poor Kinsleigh Welty, from essentially the day she was born in 2018, was dealing with severe neglect and abuse. She was taken from her mother's custody and placed into foster care because of failure to thrive. She was born with methamphetamine in her system. She was born with mild dwarfism and also needed a feeding tube. So already she was struggling
She
from
was
day one.
primed to be the identified patient in the family.
Right. Her mother even did time, 21 days in jail for abuse and neglect. And time again, Kinsleigh was taken from her mother's care, given to her paternal grandfather to be raised, given back to her mother, Toni McClure, taken away from Toni and placed into foster care. Each time she was taken away, she thrived outside of her mother's care. But there was this drive on the part of DCS to reunify children with their parents. And each time she was placed back into her mother's care, she would end up with bite marks, malnourished, filthy, with welts, bruises, all kinds of stuff. And calls would go in to DCS time and time again. Until finally, April 9th of 2024, she dropped, I'm not going to say she dropped dead. She fell unconscious, and her mother called the ambulance, called paramedics, and tried to blame the injuries on her husband. And she claimed, oh, well, Kinsleigh saw her dad, and then
Her
she came back
ex.
to me, her ex-husband, and then, came back to me in this condition. And then they were able to show that, no, she hadn't seen her father. She'd been in her mother's care, where she spent 20 hours a day locked in a tiny closet, deprived of food, deprived of water, covered in feces and lice. And she was locked in the closet. They would push a dresser against the door, and so she couldn't get out. And that is where she spent the bulk of her life. And brothers, her older brothers, were instructed to not give her food, to not help her in any way. And eventually, her little body couldn't take it. She weighed about 21 pounds at the age of 5 when she was found. She weighed less than when she was 2 years old.
Mm.
And so then now this year, this month, actually, November, the legal proceedings have begun against DCS. So what stands out with this case? I mean, unfortunately, this is time and time again, we see reports of neglect and abuse against children, against the most vulnerable among us. And what stands out is this is, again, another case of the failure on the part of Children's Protective Services to adequately do their job. We saw this with Gabriel Fernandez. We did an episode on Gabriel Fernandez a
Mhm.
few seasons back,
Mhm.
where it was, again, blatantly obvious this little boy was going to school with his face basically caved in and nothing was fucking done. And this is the same thing with this case.
Mm.
So I don't know what the hell it's going to take for things to change. I know this is a different state, but across the board, this is a national issue because it's not just Indiana, it's not just California, it's everywhere in this country that CPS fails.
Yeah. I think the family reunification thing is based on data because they know that most of the time, even if kids are growing up in like heinous situations, that they actually the outcomes are better if they stay in the home. So generally, this just speaks to like how everything is contextual and how each case has to be looked at on its own merits. Like you can't fall asleep into that slumber of like generalizing. Some of it is overwhelm, with caseloads. Maybe the efforts to reunify are taken to, generalized instead of looking at each specific family situation. I feel like, in as much as we've talked about this, what I really have come to understand is like there will be fatalities. Like it's just not a perfect system. It's like things will get missed, but they can do probably a lot better. I just looked up child fatalities in Indiana with prior DCS involvement. And so this is like interesting. So the total fatalities just through the years seem to hover around 55 average, the total fatalities for abuse and neglect. And of those, the ones with prior DCS involvement kind of hover around like 10 to 12 average. So 10 in 2018, 9 in 2019. It went way up in 2021 to 15. So a lot of kids who with involvement with, DCS end up dead. In 2013, there were a bunch of reforms. And then after Kinsleigh's death, there were some reforms. But basically, what they've done to try to change this is they've capped caseloads, they've increased pay, they've shifted from reunification over everything to evidence based safety in 2024 with HEA 1605. That's the legal, the case directly addressing post reunification risks. So, what they found is that children under 3 years of age comprise like 67% of victims. So they're starting to look like, I guess, have more eyes on and have less of a reunification over everything kind of approach. And then they're emphasizing kinship care, via like neighbors or, family members and a reduced reliance on foster homes. And then what they do after Kinsley? Yeah, HEA 1605, that legislation makes child safety the number one factor, and it allows parental rights to be terminated after 15 months. So, like quicker processing of like this stuff instead of just letting kids kind of languish forever in this back and forth. So they are making efforts, but the 2023 13 kids with prior DCS involvement died out of 56 total. Still quite a lot of kids.
And you said that the average age range was between 1 and 3?
No, what they've noticed is the kids that are the most vulnerable, which makes sense because it's infants and toddlers. So like 3 and below comprise 67% of the kids who end up dead.
It makes sense that those are difficult years. Those are the
Yeah.
most challenging years.
I just recently learned that the most violent age for humans is toddler age.
Yeah, as an aside,
Mm.
there's one of the greatest 2 of the greatest books that I read, as a mom was The Happiest Baby on the Block by Harvey Karp and The Happiest Toddler on the Block. And one of the things that he pointed out is that, the reason why that toddlers are so violent is they don't have language and they're trying so hard to communicate and they become frustrated. And they're like, he said you have to kind of treat them like miniature cavemen, you know?
Yeah.
And to think of it in those terms and like the way to work to sort of like work with them. It's an incredible book, but it allows for some perspective for parents when they're dealing with like a little one that is just having such a hard time because it's frustrating when you don't have language. Your feelings are so big, but you're like kind of trapped, you
Oh,
know?
yeah. Adults too. When I, when adults don't learn how to self and like to go in and go, what am I feeling and thinking? And how do I translate that into language and share it with my partner or my friends? When adults don't know how to do that, it's incredibly frustrating too. And I think there are many adults walking around who never learned that.
Mhm. It's true.
But yeah, that's great. Like any resources you have for parents would be great to share.
Those 2 books, and then for anybody who is like the parents who's a parent of like a singleton and twins, there's this great book by a pediatrician. She herself had like an older child or like about a couple years between, her first child and then a set of twins. She wrote this great book called Ready or Not, Here They Come. An incredible book because I have a child who's 3 years older than, his twin brothers, and she's an incredible book. She's like, "You know what? Fuck the laundry. Like, just let it like get order in food, let there be a mess, like just get rest." And her best piece of advice was, "You if you have twins, you need to keep them on the same schedule. Don't let one wake up and then the other one sleep. Feed one, don't feed the other one because otherwise there will be no schedule. Like
Ugh.
you have to keep them on the same schedule." Best piece of advice that I received.
I mean, that's the thing though, like, right? Like what underlies what happens in a family like this, right? And that's exactly it in a lot of ways. I mean, the forces that bear down on people that result in them doing what they do to their children. And that's a big one, right? Like not having skills, not having help.
It's interesting because when we're talking about like the data around DCS in Indiana, and then even some of the data around like what was when we did the Gabriel Fernandez case, which
Mhm.
which took place in Palmdale in California. There seems to be a through line in these cases of a lot of apathy on the part
Yeah.
of the families, on the part of the parents. Oftentimes drug use in the case,
Me
especially with meth. Meth is a big one.
Mental health issues, yeah.
Mental health issues. We knew that with and I'm sorry to keep bringing up Gabriel Fernandez, but there really is they both cases have a lot in common in terms of how the system failed both of these children and the families. I'm sorry. In Kinsleigh's case as well. I don't understand. Like I really do not understand how no one was fucking fighting tooth and nail for that little girl. I don't understand.
Yeah, okay, so I would love to talk about that because the family also didn't kick and scream a lot.
Yeah.
But the thing you're talking about, we talked about this, offline, like the factors that contribute, and we had talked about how poverty or,
Poverty is huge.
and I looked at, so I went and did a little bit of research about it, and it's interesting, when you hear about how it shifts when you factor in other elements. So the research says that children in the poorest households are 3 to 25 times more likely to experience substantiated child abuse or neglect, depending on the study, depending on the country. In the US, children and families earning less than 15,000 a year are 22 times more likely to experience substantiated maltreatment than those in families that are earning more than $70,000 a year. And you can see why. I mean, it's like chronic stress, which leads to poorer mental health, which could lead to harsher parenting.
Resource scarcity.
Yeah, material hardship that actually, because of the material hardship, there is neglect because you don't have food. And then there's also, this is a really interesting, thing to think about, is the people who interact the most with the system to have resources are interacting the most with mandated reporters. So they probably get flagged for abuse at a higher rate than other families because they're interacting with social workers and pediatricians that are part of the state, like, and then you have like neighborhood issues and community effects, sort of like higher crime, worse housing conditions, stuff like that, weaker social supports for people. But when this is the most interesting part of it is that when researchers control for parental mental health, substance abuse, domestic violence, and young parental age, the direct effect of income shrinks considerably. So there's something about parental mental health, substance abuse, domestic violence, and young parental age, which is sort of what we're pointing to, right? Is like sort of not knowing how to parent, maybe being too young, having a mental health issue, doing drugs, all those things really raise the chances of a child being abused in any class.
Yeah.
So that's the spiel on some factors.
Right. What really stood out to me with this case in particular, because my question always is, how does something like this happen? And again, you address some of those factors. What's fascinating to me too is how Toni McClure, she made it clear after she was arrested that she didn't care about Kinsleigh, that
Mhm.
she didn't want to deal with her.
Mhm.
And when she was asked, why would you lock her in the closet for 20 hours a day? And Toni McClure very honestly said, I didn't want to deal with her. So I didn't have to deal with her. She didn't want to deal with her. And she even said something to the effect of, well, I guess I'm going to jail now forever or for a long time. It was chilling.
Yeah.
It was chilling because it spoke to her own just nihilism, just this absolute apathy, not just about her child, but her children and
Mm.
herself. She wasn't, she initially tried to push blame onto her ex-husband and say, oh, I got Kinsleigh back from visiting him and she was in this shape. And then when that didn't work, she just gave up. She's like,
Mhm.
I don't care. I don't care.
Mhm.
Mom. And you think about someone like that who doesn't care about anything or anyone.
Mhm.
And someone like that will never be rehabilitated, I don't think. I don't think that someone like that can learn to care about life. I mean, what's happening, what that says to me is this is a cycle that this family was in. I couldn't find any information about Toni McClure's background beyond the fact that she had regular, run-ins for child abuse and child neglect. And that her own mother, Tammy Halsey, also participated in abusing Kinsleigh by
Mhm.
restraining her with duct tape. And there's
Mhm.
some text exchanges between mother and daughter about how to abuse the little girl and
Yeah.
referring to her by terrible names,
Mm.
calling Kinsleigh names and, Toni McClure saying, do the duct tape thing. Because Tammy was complaining about Kinsleigh getting up and moving around.
Ooh, I have some of their texts. You want me to read some?
Yes, please.
Okay. So this dovetails with some of the stuff we can talk about in terms of like context, like like the Cinderella syndrome aspect of it, like how do kids get scapegoated, who becomes the identified patient and why, and how does that work? Part of it is because it's like reinforcing in some way for the mom, and the way Tammy is Tony's mom, Kinsleigh's grandma. So Tammy and Tony had all these text messages that have been recovered and made public, and it just shows the nature of their relationship, and that instead of confronting Tony about Tony's behavior with Kinsleigh, Tammy reinforces that behavior by bonding with her about creative ways to keep Kinsleigh under control. So you can see how that relationship is totally reinforcing. So one of them is, Tony sends to Tammy a photo of Kinsleigh crouching near a couch. Now that alone is just like devastating to hear. Crouching near a couch, and the text says she got out. Okay, so McClure reports spotting Kinsleigh outside of her current confined area. Tammy responds, "Damn, do it tighter," referencing taping or tying Kinsleigh to prevent her escape. Tammy says to Tony, she had been asked to come over, and she writes back, "I'm too tired. I have to work tomorrow." Anyway, more and more conversations. She broke the lock and shoved excrement under the couch. So Tammy, the grandma, responds, "Tie her fucking ass up." And then they reference Kinsleigh and they call her a demon, dummy, chunkers, evil. And they withhold food and drinks from her and they lock the fridge and the cabinets. And basically all of these efforts to control her intake of food and water, and the ways in which they get together to talk discipline. So at no point does the grandma step in and say, like, this is not okay, this is wrong. She just reinforces it by playing along. So she'll do time too, right? Didn't she get
Yes, she's
okay?
also in jail, along with the boyfriend,
Ryan, is his name Ryan?
Brian, who I don't know what's going on with his head. He looks like Beaker from the Muppet Show.
A bashed in beaker. There's some
Yeah.
dent. There's like a dent
Yeah,
situation.
I'm not trying to body shame anybody, but like his head looks it's a thing where when I saw his head, I thought, "Oh, maybe that's why he was in
Yes.
a relationship with Tony and refused to provide any aid." And apparently he claimed that he understood that what was happening to Kinsleigh was cruel, not nice, all of that, but he didn't want to say anything to Tony because he was worried that she would lose custody of the other children, including the baby that she had recently had with him. It's always the people that abuse kids that have like multiple children. She just kept having babies.
I
She
know. And
just kept having them.
if you're already overwhelmed, we talk about this a lot, the like bringing more chaos or whatever into your, like, it kind of reminds me of our conversation about hoarding. Like,
Yes.
you already have more than you can handle. And you're going to bring another life into that situation. It's just so irresponsible.
I didn't see anything. I was looking for information if Tony was, having all these kids to get more welfare checks, which is what Pearl Fernandez was doing, because Pearl did not want anything to do with Gabriel until she saw him as another paycheck.
Yeah, I don't. I did a bit of research, and what I heard, what I got gathered from the research was that on no documents that are public, the court documents or anything else, is there any information about her having a job. So she must have been getting support from, so right, there would be a reinforcement for, like, the environment would reinforce having another child by saying, okay, you have another kid, you get another $400 a month or whatever. But even like most people would think to themselves, like, that's not even enough. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you can't even manage your life now. And maybe it was an accident, but like, there are ways to prevent that. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox about that. But irresponsible, right? Not thinking about the kind of life she's going to be able to provide that kid.
Again, this goes back to this really bizarre just apathy about everything. Everything. Like, I know I sent this to you in a message I think yesterday about, like, there's so many Southern Gothic elements in this case.
Hmm.
Just the poverty, the filth. Like,
Hmm.
they, are living in just unspeakable, like, biohazardous conditions. Like, the house was absolutely filthy. There was trash everywhere, gnats everywhere. In, like, the police report, they're like describing the environment. There was this tiny closet that Kinsleigh was held prisoner in, was filthy. It had human fecal matter, urine, petrified peanut butter sandwich.
Oh, that broke my heart.
it just, and then just trash that had never ever been taken out. That the house was absolutely abhorrent. And you have people living in these conditions. You have children living in these conditions. And a mother and a boyfriend, and stuff that are just that don't care. They don't care about anything. It reeks of depression, right? It
Yeah,
reeks
yeah.
of, like, this kind of almost vegetative depression where, like, there's no action happening. And the only action happening is just regularly abusing this little girl, targeting her. There was also a mention of how at some point, I think Tony brought home pizza,
Oh,
and
yeah.
she's sitting eating it with the boys, the brothers, and Kinsleigh is locked in the closet, fully aware that they're eating, and she's asking for food, and Tony's like, "No, food and water." So she's also just, like, horribly dehydrated.
So there's a couple things that bring comes to mind. There's the animal response. In animal communities, in primate communities, I think even, if you have a child that is there's a disproportionate amount of abuse directed toward kids with special needs too. That's another thing that happens. So you have two things. You have like I think about it in an animal perspective, like animals maybe just let their kids that are born with special needs die because it's
Right.
too much in terms of a resource kind of thing. So there could be that like immediate response to having a kid with special needs, a feeding tube, all that. So maybe like that's so early enough that maybe that's like the earliest, most primal kind of like pushing away. But there's also the meaning part. Like, so as humans, we something means something to us. So having a kid with special needs, I wonder if that triggered something in Tony that evoked feelings of hate, feelings of disgust, feelings of contempt because she wasn't like quote unquote perfect or easy. So I wonder if that's how it started, if there was sort of just a rejection of her because of her needs. I mean, it's all centering around the ingesting of food and sustenance. And there was a
Right.
problem with that when she was born. So I don't know. It's
There
just,
there's something very symbolic
yeah.
in depriving her,
Hmm.
right? It brings to mind it's an othering,
Hmm.
so Kinsleigh's being othered in the same way that Gabriel was othered because he was perceived as effeminate.
Yeah.
He was targeted for being effeminate or
Yes.
being perceived as being effeminate, and then some information had come out that he may or may not have been sexually molested by a male, and rather than taking care of him, he was deemed gay. Gabriel Fernandez was.
Or he was just deemed gay because he was a kid with a sweet open heart and his two gay uncles were raising him. You know what I mean? Like,
Right,
it's like, right, that association piece and then the rejection because of what they symbolize is just so terrifying, right? Like, through
right.
no fault of their own, they're just innocent kids.
Yeah, he was just yeah, but that stood out. It's like, okay, so Gabriel was othered, and then you have Kinsleigh othered, being special needs. There's no information about any of the other children as presenting as having any sort of disability. I think she was the only one. And it is very possible she was rejected
Hmm.
and, hated. And also, she had some outbursts that were observed early on that I feel like came more from just the neglect piece.
Yes, that's what will happen as a kid will be neglected or abused, and then they'll start acting out, and then they'll get punished for that and
Right,
pathologized for that when it's really the context they're in that has created the behavioral issues
right.
and the parents sort of perpetuating the whole thing. Yeah, and that's the thing about like if we sound like we're moralizing, for me it's not really a moral issue. It's like we were talking about, just how people are shaped and how behaviors are shaped, and you can see in that family system that family systems always seek homeostasis in a way, and there's something, it persists in the family because it works for someone or it works for the system. So like you can sort of see how starving and like locking Kinsleigh in a closet would be a solution to Tony. Like,
Sure.
I don't have to deal with her anymore, her stealing or her demands on me. So something hard for her goes away when that kid is out of sight. And then you have the grandma just totally like validating and bonding with her over it. And the sort of like the sort of like when something disturbing shows up or difficult shows up, the blaming and deflecting of shame onto another person, there is this like relief, right? It's not me, it's her, she's the problem. There were no punishers in the system. Like there was no one confronting her, there was no one threatening her to take her kid away there. And in fact, I don't know, maybe taking her kid away would have been the thing that she wanted, but DCS did not perform. They didn't they you know, one way to have sort of like removed some of the reinforcers is like they could have just said we're going to have surprise visits, and we're not going to tell you when we're going to drop in. That might have kept some of this in line, but they didn't do anything like that. They kind of just
Well, if they did,
mhm.
Kinsleigh was locked in the closet and they were told that she was visiting someone else. I know that that was something that had come up
Yes.
1 or 2 times, maybe?
The time she died, they came there that day and they were, asked where she was and she said that she was with her dad and then she ended up dying that day.
Right, but there were a few other visits before as
Mhm.
well where the claim is that she just wasn't there, and they never followed up. A lot of times, the social workers never actually physically saw Kinsleigh. They
Right.
just they would close the case and just again, it is very likely that a lot of these social workers were absolutely overwhelmed with enormous caseloads.
And they mean well.
A lot of times they do, but it is just, you I think about it with a lot of these social workers, and I remember the Gabriel Fernandez documentary where each social worker had like 30 cases or more, which is just mind-boggling.
And some are too timid. You saw the difference between, like, the very seasoned social worker that went into the house and was, like, opening all the cupboards, looking at all the things, check, 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 check. And then you have people that go to the door and are like, "Is he here?" And they're like, "Nope." And it's like, "Okay, bye." That should not be how it goes. If you have
Right.
somebody who is harming a kid to that degree, then you need to push. And if they can't do it with single social workers, I feel like they should have teams where, if someone's a little more timid and that's just not what they're afraid. A lot of people are afraid of conflict. And
Well, no, and then you imagine like a 5'3" 100-pound woman going to a door and a big person who's like benches 300 pounds answers the door
yeah,
and is like, "No, she's not here." What
yeah,
the fuck? Okay. Okay. Yeah, you need somebody. In that one case that we saw the example in the Gabriel Fernandez documentary, the
hmm,
woman came to the door and she actually had an officer with her.
yes.
Like, if there's someone, I mean, I'm sure that law enforcement can't constantly, be with a social worker, but yeah, like you said, teams, like maybe, yeah, I think things just move are easier in pairs.
Like I'm good at like helping people feel welcome and like they can. This is what I've been told by clients. They can feel free and open to talk to me and that kind of thing. I am not good at going to someone's. I mean, I would not do that job because I'm so not good at like showing up on someone's doorstep and busting my way in and standing up over and over again. And I know that about myself. I would probably want to scurry away too, like take their word for it and go away. Because basically you're saying you're a liar. I go get go get the kid from me. Like that you have to kind of have that bluster, like be
Right.
somebody who can just be like, I'm not leaving your doorstep until you show me that that kid is okay. And if they're somewhere else, you call that person and you have them bring that person to me right now. Like, I'm just not, I would love to be. I mean, I'm working on that, but it's yeah, and maybe people need help. But I don't think that people when they're in their jobs, especially when they a lot of people who work for DCS, some are seasoned, some are not, and you know, I don't think I don't know what it's like in every DCS office, but I know as an early career clinician, people often, when I was an early career clinician, it's you feel so stupid, like, you feel like, "I don't know anything, like, what am I doing?" Like, now my thing is guard your stupidity, like, you don't know a lot about what's going on with people, and you need to ask questions when you're working with people because you don't know, you're just making stuff up a lot of the time. So, guard your stupidity, but back then, it's like, hide your stupidity. Like, don't ask for help, don't tell your boss that you actually are totally afraid to go there because they might judge you, you might not get promoted, you know what I mean? So I think there's a lot of that that happens too around assessing one's own skills and being honest about what you will and won't do. And there's not a lot of oversight. Like you have these people with 30 cases, and then you have the person that supervises them, and they're essentially supervising like 300 cases. So yeah,
It's very interesting because I think there is also this misconception that DCS, they're all terrible people and they let this happen. And it's like, no, she fell through the cracks is what happened. I don't
yeah,
think it was an intentional thing. I don't even think that Tony McClure intentionally killed Kinsleigh. I think it was, how do I put this?
mm,
I think that Kinsleigh died because Tony just didn't care and just wanted her to go away. And had DCS, I feel like if DCS had said, "Listen, Tony, you don't have to keep your kid. Like we'll take her. Like you don't have to keep your kid." I'm not sure why Tony didn't just let Brian Welty, her grandfather, keep her. It's not clear. It's not really made clear if DCS automatically took Kinsleigh away from Brian and foisted her upon Tony McClure and said, "Here, you have to take her back," or if that was ever presented as an option. Hey, you don't have to, she's thriving with her grandfather. You can visit her whenever you want. She's with her grandfather. Or if Tony was actually insisting upon keeping Kinsleigh out of this fear that she would lose her other kids. None of that is clear to me.
yeah. And I mean, she wouldn't probably lose her other kids if she just said, you know what? I've already have enough kids. I can't take care of this kid. I need to adopt her out, or I need to, right? I mean, that what they would have loved. They would have probably loved to facilitate an adoption, and the grandparents would have adopted her. I'm sure, the
Right.
paternal grandparents. That's the part that I'm like these. I'm not saying I don't know how I would act in a situation like this. I hope that I would be the person that would, you know, not be a coward and who would risk ruining my relationship or damaging my relationship with Tony to save her daughter's life. But no one in that family made any friction for her
No.
around what she was doing. There was no accountability. There was no, I see what's happening and this is not okay. There was no, I would have snuck photos. I mean, I would have just like
There were
snuck in.
welts
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
her body, there were bite marks on her body, there were welts on her body, she was malnourished, she was skin and bones, and no one fucking fought for her. I see posts on Instagram, I follow you do too, all of these animal rescue,
Mm.
pages where people are fucking jumping through hoops to rescue animals. No one fucking fought for that little girl in the same way that the only person that fought for Gabriel Fernandez was a security guard. There was one person in
Yeah.
Gabriel Fernandez's life, and it was a man that saw him
Yeah.
briefly in the
Yeah.
welfare office, is that security guard. He saw Gabriel Fernandez. He saw that there were cigarette burns on this little boy's body, on the back of his neck. He saw that his hair was like he had a black eye, the telltale signs of a little boy that was abused, and that security guard locked eyes with Gabriel Fernandez, and when Gabriel left, he went to his he risked his job to
Hmm.
try and get Gabriel saved. One fucking person. Not his fucking grandparents, not his fucking uncles. The teacher made call after call. I don't know. I know
Yeah.
I do the same thing where I'm like, I don't know what I would do in that situation either, but like I imagine being that teacher and just holding on to him and going, "No,
Yes.
I will not let you go home."
I would have called the police.
And I'm not letting go of this little boy. You can fucking throw me in jail. I'm not letting him go. And with Kinsleigh, it's like she keeps seeing her grandparents. She keeps seeing these people. They see that she's abused, and no one is refusing to send her home. Like, no, you're gonna have to fucking pry her out of my arms.
This is why people said during the pandemic that the shutdown would harm kids who lived in abusive homes
Yes.
because no one had eyes on them. So she was pre-kindergarten, I think, and they put her in that closet in Thanksgiving. And then from Thanksgiving is that's when the decline was so sharp. And before that, she was seen by a grandparent, but she wasn't quite in the state she was in before she died. Like with her hair all short, with the lice, with the like skin and bones. I don't think she was that quite that messed
But
up.
she had bruises and welts, dude. That right there alone, even if she was
Yeah.
well fed
Yeah.
and she had welts that was like clear sign that she'd been whipped.
Yeah. Someone said they think they're lying also about the timeline of they said that they never really brought her to the party they said they brought her to. The viewing of the eclipse. People are saying that's not true, that they actually didn't have her with them. So I'm wondering if they hid her from everyone. But still, even if they did, the welts, and also you don't just let a kid like be hidden like that when you know their parent is dangerous. You make an excuse and you go over there and you say, "Oh, I just, wanted to stop by," and you try to muscle your way. That's what I would do. I would muscle my way in somehow and take some pictures or something, or I would call DCS and say, "Please go check on this kid." It was like a year or something, but that she hadn't seen her dad, right?
Yeah.
And the grandparents, they loved her, but no one followed up. People don't just stop abusing kids if they're doing what the mom was doing.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, it makes me wonder how pervasive just general or I know that there are people nowadays who think that if you spank a child that you're abusing them. And then other people that are like, no, if sometimes you have to whack a kid on the bus or I mean on the butt if they have done something clearly like, I had one friend and she told me that like she freaked out because her kid almost ran into traffic. She grabbed him by the arm, she pulled him back, and she whacked him on the ass. And
Mhm.
she said, I feel horrible that I did that. And I'm like, I get it though. It's like, you almost fucking died. If this has to send a message that
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I
Yeah.
understand. But the way we regard abuse, like, I don't know. Maybe they thought, oh, she got a welt from getting hit with the belt. As you do. Like, I don't know, maybe their perspective or their perception of child abuse is radically different than
Yeah.
ours.
So cultural. That's so cultural.
It's
Along
a
with other
cultural thing.
things, like
Right.
other things like, families where the man is the head of the household and whatever he does and says is what everyone has to do, and very sort of macho kind of thing. Yeah, there's so many different. And then there's like the family cultures, like from that lineage, like what they got from their parents and what they think is, it's interesting to me that some people who are abused come out of those situations and they're like, I will never do this to my child. That was awful. And then some people just repeat it.
Which is I can't help but think that Toni McClure and her mother that Toni McClure was probably abused. She had to have been. If you've got a mother that is happily duct taping her grandchild to a fucking bed or
Mm.
a pole or whatever, that grandmother probably beat her own kids. Like, that's I'm making an assumption here.
Or never stepped in at any point to discipline her own child. Like if she's not doing it now, she probably wasn't doing it then, providing guidance and confronting and all that. I mean, she just goes right along with it out of fear, out of protecting her kid. Like they were saying that she was doing this with Tony because she was afraid that they would take Tony's other kids away. And I'm like, have you ever thought to yourself that that might actually be a good idea?
But
you know?
also, like, I would say, like to Tony's mother, Tammy, I would have been like, "Tammy, your granddaughter lives in a closet 20 hours a day and is starving."
It's insane.
So but that's the thing where I'm like,
Yeah.
I have a hard time believing that Toni herself was not subjected to some form of physical abuse by
Oh,
her
yeah.
own parents.
Maybe.
And then you look at Kinsleigh's father, who apparently was charged with domestic violence to the point where he was not permitted to have any custody of his daughter, which then begs the question, what was going on in his family? So I'm wondering, like, if this cycle of abuse is just kind of more pervasive through these families. And when we talk about culture and stuff and the culture of violence, I'm just wondering.
Not everybody who is abused abuses, but yes, I think there are quite a few situations where you do what you learn how to do. And like people do things for three reasons, really, right? Like they don't know how to do anything else, they're avoiding something worse, or they're moving towards something that's important to them. And we have dopamine spikes when we punish someone. So it's tied into our brain's reward system. So they think evolutionarily, there's some argument about this, but evolutionarily, they think it might have helped humans stick together by reinforcing fairness or punishing cheaters or rule breakers. So there's some satisfaction we get neurologically from punishing people that we deem whatever, right? Like different. That's why dehumanizing people works so well, I think, like
Like calling Kinsley a demon.
yeah, and so
Right.
you put this on them, right? Their behavior is something we don't like. They're a demon, they're whatever, and then we punish it, and there's a reward. It's reward driven at a certain point, which I think you can see. That there's some kind of thrill. Not only that, like it's a discharge of anger, which also can feel good to people, but there is something wired in us that we're punishing. I said this to my hairstylist, and she was all, I just thought it was because I was Sicilian.
It's interesting too because I was thinking about, like, the sadism piece,
Mhm.
that also that pleasure that people like Tony McClure, Pearl Fernandez with Gabriel Fernandez and her boyfriend also, that tortured and killed Gabriel. And in this case with Tony, with Kinsleigh, there's that pleasure that they may have gotten from hurting someone that they see as small and vulnerable, because they themselves are small and vulnerable, right?
You're
They're
uncomfortable with
they're
their
uncomfortable,
vulnerability. Yeah.
right? They feel small. And so by hurting, by tormenting, it's a projection of sorts. It's a projecting all their shortcomings onto a little person
Yes, this person
that,
represents all the bad things about. Yeah.
yeah, I think about that. And I don't know what the answer is with how, there are, of course, the changes that, DCS, CPS, all of these different, organizations that are tasked with protecting children. It's always going to fall short. I mean, shortly after Gabriel Fernandez, was killed, tortured and killed, there was another little boy not far from him that had the same thing happen. It
Mm.
happens all the time. And there's the podcast Suffer the Little Children, which is a podcast devoted to solely to cases of child abuse.
Mhm.
And the host Lane, most of her episodes are on, like, cases that don't necessarily get the same news coverage as Kinsleigh's case, or the case of Tegan Skiba or
Mm.
Gabriel Fernandez. But there are so many.
I
There are
know.
so many cases. And I wonder sometimes, is it a case of, is this about abolishing poverty, because so many of these cases seem to take place in families that are struggling financially, and with usually it's abject poverty. I don't know about Tony's fight. I'm so unclear. There's so much we don't know about Kinsleigh Welty's family's financial background.
Yeah, I think I mean, it's a larger issue. Like I think that you have to train caregivers on like hunger is a biological thing, not a moral thing.
Right.
Like
Right.
it's if you have like if the institutions around them, because I think people do get a lot of support if they need it. Like there's especially in California. California has a lot of supports for
Yes.
families, like group work. I think you have to do things like mandate, like if she's malnourishing her kid, mandate weight tracking, have unannounced visits. If there's no change, then you don't get to reunify. And then you kind of have to work with the collateral. So in therapy, like when you meet with a parent, like you're working with a kid, you meet with their parents, called a collateral visit. So like there are these people in the kids' lives that should probably be involved. Like get more people involved in reporting and assessing, get their help, get their eyes on it, and actually enlist them in the process of supporting the parent in a way that's not enabling, right? But you have to have people to do that voluntarily, and it's a lot of work. I mean, it's a lot of work to talk with families and reshape how they do things and teach them, and they have to be willing to take it up in order to do it. And I don't know how willing she was to get any sort of parenting help, but they should make that mandatory. If you're going to get your kid back, you've got to show progress and you've got to do things differently, don't you think?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And it does become a case of like, and then this becomes yet another task that these social workers with 30 plus cases
Yeah.
have to take on. It's just getting in the fucking front door, and then you're dealing with intimidate. Like I think about Isario, the Pearl's boyfriend, who looked fucking scary.
Yeah. Oh
He was a
gosh.
security guard. He was scary. Imagine him answering the door and like looking at you and being like, "She's not here," or "He's not here."
Yeah, you're like a
And you're like,
25-year-old social worker and on your first day of the job, you know?
right, and you're
Yeah.
you are laden down with cases. Then there's also those people who like to weaponize CPS. Those real fucking winners that love to just call, like the Karens that call
Yes.
and try to sick CPS on someone they don't like because of an argument.
Mhm.
Now you've got a social worker who is like, there's somebody who desperately needs them that are like now going and having to open up a case for something that is not a problem. So you've got,
Yeah.
there's so many things that are just, I'm just to try and like not always like vilify DCS or CPS. Like a lot of times these people do have the best intentions, but they are undertrained, understaffed, overwhelmed with stuff. And then there's a lot of things that need to be happening that aren't happening.
Yeah, I mean, if I ever sound like I'm critiquing them, I am definitely not, because I think just as a clinician, there are so many things that can go on. You have so little time with people. And they I think they kept it pretty hidden. And it's easy, it's not it's like hard to see what's not there. Like you're doing your day, you go to this house, you don't know anything about her being kept in the closet. You don't know anything about her welts and bruises, and you ask where she
And
is
you're
and they
seeing the other children that seem well fed. And so
yeah,
you make the assumption, well, those boys seem okay, so she's probably okay.
right. So it's easy to see what's to not see what's not there. I guess maybe that's a process thing. Like that's a process issue that needs to be addressed. And I'm sure data can support all of this. Like what does the data say about people who starve their kids? Like it might be different from people who hit their kids. And there might need to be a change in process around follow-up based on that specific type of abuse. So I think they could probably dial that stuff in more, and I guess they learn this way. They learn from their mistakes, hopefully. But I would say, yeah, if somebody's starving their kid, you need to see that kid and you need to make sure that they are not malnourished over time.
Yeah. And then I'm just so, this is going to sound terrible. I know I mentioned this to you before, but like this whole, what are they going to, so Kinsleigh's paternal grandfather and her father are suing DCS.
Right.
I don't know what their plan is if they win this lawsuit, what they're going to do with the money, but I feel like it should go to an organization to protect children. And I hope it's not just like they're just trying to get rich off of the death of this little girl.
I think I would feel better about it if I heard from them we feel we have massively failed our granddaughter, and so did DCS, and we want to see changes happen. But I don't think I haven't heard that. All I've heard is a lot of blame going to DCS and not a lot of acceptance of responsibility on the family's end.
Yeah, it's like all of a sudden Bradley Welty is angry about what happened to his daughter, and I'm like, did you ever try and see her? Did you ever try to see your little girl? Did you know anything was going on with her, or did you just hear that she died? And now you're mad about it all of a sudden. Like, I'm not,
No.
I'm just like, I don't know. Are those crocodile tears that you're crying for your little dead girl that you never fucking seem to want to see? And now you're gonna point the finger at DCS when you were never trying or fighting to like have any kind of custody of your child.
Yeah. At least send the grandparents or something. I don't know if she had a restraining order against him or what, but like at least send someone. I mean, I don't know. I think people are too afraid of upsetting each other about stuff like this. Like, who cares if Tony hates you? Bang down the door and get that kid out of that closet.
Especially when you know that she had a history of abusing kids.
Yeah.
Like he knew this about her.
Yeah.
See a lot of people mad at social services, and I don't see a lot of people saying, I failed my child. I failed my grandchild. I failed my nephew. I failed my niece.
Yeah. Yeah. I was too afraid. I was too afraid to like help because I was afraid she'd be mad at me or something, right? Or I was afraid to help because I thought, if I put myself on the line, they wouldn't really even take the kid away and then I'd be screwed. Like there's lots of reasons but it's like step out into the sunshine. Like take some accountability, have some accountability. I guess that's what I would say to people. If this is ever happening in your life, like try to be brave. Try to like do the thing to help
Because
the kid.
someone's life may depend on it. Like I see people getting outraged and fighting tooth and nail over like financial transactions or
Yes.
like
Yes.
something that you didn't want came in the mail or in bad condition, and they're up in arms about it. And I don't see that same energy
Yeah.
being directed towards like a grandchild, a niece, or a nephew that is being abused
Yes.
or is in bad, like is in danger.
Yeah.
And to be fair, maybe it's the maybe the grandfather was calling DCS and saying, I'm really worried about my granddaughter, and hearing we'll take care of it, and then assuming it was taken care of, like
They're supposed to let you know if you make a report. They have to let you know what action they took on it. So,
right. Sometimes like the child abuse stuff is one in which maybe they weren't concerned about welts. They thought she got whipped, and maybe in their culture that's how you handle a kid that gets into something they're not supposed to. I don't know.
mhm,
But
mhm.
isn't it just so it's overwhelming when you hear about these cases and you know that it's just going to keep happening. It's just going to keep happening, you know?
That was the hardest part about when I worked with kids, just having to send them back into a family system that was dysfunctional or abusive. And you just have to kind of hope that the parents get help. And then it's a hard thing, I think, to be like, yeah, well, you have 7 more years of this, you know? Some people are really cut out for work with kids and they're really good at it and but yeah, that's hard. It's hard. It will keep happening because people have problems with emotion regulation and they don't have sometimes a lot of skills and they don't think about it and they have a kid and then
One thing I can't get behind is this idea that, oh, just have kids.
I
Like
know.
that everybody should be a parent. It's not easy being a parent. It
No.
is not easy. And loving with all your heart isn't enough. A lot of the time it's not enough.
No.
It's a lot of fucking work, and it doesn't just stop. It doesn't. It is a lot of work, and it requires a lot of self-sacrifice and
Oh,
Not everyone is cut out for it, and when you see these situations like Toni McClure, who, like, didn't stop at 1, and she didn't stop at 2, and she didn't stop at 3, and she didn't stop at 4. She kept having kids, and she kept neglecting and abusing them. And
yeah.
one of them, she neglected and abused until the little girl died. And that life cycle, that poor Kinsleigh, 5 years old, that those 5 years were painful
Oh my
and
God.
filled with hatred and filled with neglect and just being hungry and thirsty all the fucking time.
I
And
just can't even.
apparently, I don't know if this is true, but apparently the last thing that Kinsleigh said was, "I want to die."
Yeah. Mm.
Imagine being a 5 years old and saying, "I want to die." And
It's,
then probably the only peace that she ever knew was when she fucking did.
uh,
And I don't understand how you can keep. I mean, I actually I can. I think that Toni was just that nihilistic, apathetic person that just fucking popped babies out. That was just like circumstances, like, I'm pregnant.
right. We are a product of our environments. And some of us never quite get the memo about how to live a life effectively. And there's her whole life seemed to be under aversive control, right? Avoid this, avoid this, avoid this. Otherwise, she would have been doing things that to make her life better, probably.
Right.
So, life is so much better when you think about things from the perspective of what do I want out of this life? What do I stand for? Who do I want to be? How do I want to show up? What are my values? And have it's like she had no north star. It was just I'm guessing if there was meth involved and maybe some mental health issues, I don't know, that she was just seeking like pleasure and avoiding pain as much as she could. And in a way, that whole thing between her and Kinsleigh was there's a pleasure in that punishment. You know, the hatred, the despising, the scapegoating. It's you, not me. Blame, blame, blame. That's a way to get rid of. It's like make it go away, make it go away. You know, make these feelings go away, right? I feel guilty because I hate my daughter or whatever. And that is no way to live a life. It's very dangerous. Your life gets very small and stuff like this happens. But somehow some people can be raised in very abusive families or neglectful families and they can find their way. And some people just buckle, underneath the circumstances and I don't know how much she tried for anything.
Well, that's true, and if she never knew
Hmm.
anything else, this is the way it is.
But like we
This
have
is the way it is.
TV. Like I'm like we have TV. You can see other people doing their lives. That's that whole thing. I'm like, it just doesn't make sense to me. I know we get in our way a lot, but it doesn't make sense to me to not have aspirations to be like sane. You know what I mean? And to be out of that loop of like, but depression. You're right. It's totally like it
It's
can. Mhm.
it's funny that you say that because I remember I knew of a family that you would have sworn that they were from the poverty-stricken South, right? Like
Mhm.
you imagine, like, Appalachia, and you imagine like a movie like Deliverance and all that kind of thing.
Mhm.
But this family lived near a major city, and this
Mm.
family had television and access to shopping centers and things like that. They didn't have a lot of money, but they were missing over half their teeth. They were
Mhm.
missing over half their teeth, and this was in, like, the 21st century,
Mhm.
near a major city,
Mhm.
and it's just the entire family over half.
Yeah.
But it's a cultural thing. It was
Yeah.
a thing, like, within that family, this is how things were.
Yeah. And the conformity with the tribe is rewarding and reinforcing. Usually it's the scapegoats and the ones that are abused and punished are the ones that don't align with the family culture, which is really interesting. But definitely, there's definite reinforcement for that, right? Like this is what we do, this is how we do things. I'm a part of this family.
And it's a powerful thing. It's a powerful thing. Again, this was the way things were. And I'm not trying to pick on anybody that's missing over half their teeth that might be listening to this, but I'm just using this as an example of like how behaviors can
Yeah.
just perpetuate even in, modern times with,
You
the
see it
with
all the time.
technology. Yeah.
Yeah, in more subtle ways, but you see it all the time.
But that this is the only way I could say, like, with television and stuff. I guess maybe Tony just watched TV and just saw it as fantasy and entertainment, and it had nothing to do with her. Oh, wow, look at that healthy, happy family. They must be rich or something. You know what I mean? Just like
Yeah.
eating the pizza while her child is dying in the closet and just not making connections
Right, like, or
at all.
there's a belief that, like, we can't have this. This is not like, we
This isn't for us.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, we don't do things that way,
yeah.
and that's the way that it happens, and that's how this cycle just keeps perpetuating.
Mhm.
So, as a way to understand, I mean, that's I try to understand, I just wanna understand how things happen.
That's what's so lovely about, like, true crime and stuff now. I feel like, the stuff we talk about, it's not, like, because it's entertainment or it's sensational. It's, like, really trying to understand what drives people to do the things they do. Because we like to think we couldn't fall prey to the same things, right? But it's in our nature to do these things, like, to punish people and to, like, be violent.
I think one of the most dangerous things that you can do is think that you are incapable of anything bad. We are all capable of the worst fucking things, and
Yeah.
history has shown that to us. The important thing is to recognize that you are only human and that you have to work to steel yourself against any dangerous impulses, and also to have compassion, even for someone like Tony McClure, even for someone like Tammy Halsey.
It has to be horrible.
I can't imagine. I can't imagine do like, I'm angry about all of that. I can only imagine
Mhm.
what is going on inside of someone to make them capable of something like that,
Yeah.
to wanna hurt somebody. But also, this is a person that was living in abject filth, just disgusting biohazardous conditions every single day, living that way.
Yeah.
That is
Oh,
not a healthy person. That is not a happy person. That does not excuse what she fucking did, but there was something very wrong with her,
yes. Yeah. We
that with
know.
that whole family.
Suffering, major suffering. Yeah.
Yeah. But we'll keep watching to see how this lawsuit progresses. The Welty family, their lawsuit against DCS in Indiana. And if you see something, say something, please, always. And give a listen to Suffer the Little Children podcast, because that podcaster Lane is really, really working to get these little kids their voices heard. And we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Please, please like and follow our show. Send us messages, episodes you'd like to hear, any clarifications that you want to make. Let us know. We are at Secret Passage Podcast on Instagram, at Secret Pass Pod on X, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.